What's up, y'all? I'm Alan Hain, the Lawn Care Nut. Thanks for coming back for yet another weekend vlog. So this is that time of year when everybody's lawn is really starting to look good. Down here in Florida, we're finally long enough days for the grass here to really start greening up and growing and looking good. Even as far north as Georgia, where you guys have Bermuda grass, that's a little slower to wake up. It's now starting to run. And then we'll go up to our friends in the far north reaches of the country with cool season grass. You're now out of dormancy and starting to run. We all culminate right around that first Saturday in May. That's Derby Day, Cinco de Mayo, all kind of falls in around there. That's usually the time when lawns look their best from Florida all the way north to Maine and all the way over to the west. Everybody's looking good right around the beginning of May, and we're almost there. And another thing that we start thinking about when it comes that late April, early May time frame is treatments for grubs. I pretty much make content on grubs every single year. This year I've got something a little bit different for you. I'm gonna look at some of the professional formulations and show you some things that you probably didn't know. But before we get there, let's get a couple other small tasks taken care of here in the lawn. Now, I'm not sure how it is for you guys all around the country, but here in Florida, we are in our dry season and we have been super dry. I can't even remember the last time we had rain, and I'm very good about tracking it. The other thing is, we're what I call cloud proof, meaning we don't even get any shade from clouds during the day, so there's no relief. The sun just beats on the lawn all day long. And I've talked about this before too. When we have these super dry days, it reveals two things. The first thing it reveals are just what we call hot spots. They're just areas of the lawn that for whatever reason, they can't withstand the heat as well as the rest of the lawn. And so you wanna go ahead and address those. I've got plenty of videos that I made that I'll link up there that teach you how to address your hot spot. For me, I've just been hand watering to try to manage through those, but I'm also adjusting my irrigation, and that's the other thing we need to think about. Hot spots aside, what happens when we have these dry periods like this is it ends up revealing holes in my irrigation system. When I say that, I mean places where I either need to unblock a head, add a head, get better coverage, whatever. And this side yard has been a constant problem for me. It's morning time right now, and the way the sun is, you probably can't tell, but this whole thing is dried out. I'll show you some video from a couple days ago where I've been, again, trying to hand water this till I could get here to the weekend where I can go ahead and address it. And if you guys remember, I made a video actually in the fall where I was going to address this spot and I didn't. I just put a Band-Aid on it. See these areas over here? Look at them starting to brown out. Why is that? Well, what that's telling me is something's happened to the irrigation heads. They're blocked, especially right here. You can probably guess that that's where one of my irrigation heads is, but let's take a look at what's going on there. So you see this? It's really, that one's okay. It's not great. It's really this one. Can you see what's happened? The grass is taller than the head, number one, so I need to raise the whole head, but it's blocking and the grass has pretty much swallowed the head as well. So you can see here, this is the one I unblocked last year in the fall, and it's still doing fine. This one here is super old, and I don't think it rotates properly. So that one needs to be pretty much completely replaced. But the real problem is over here, because you can see this one's doing fine. It's going here, rotates back and forth, everything looks good, but it doesn't have any overlap. It's really only this side right here taking care of this. With irrigation systems, you guys know that have done it for a while, you always have overlap. So normally you'll have heads going down here that spray this way, and then you have heads on the other side that spray across this way, and you get that overlap. And that's what's missing right here is the overlap, and that's why this section right here is drying out. As I come over here, what we have some shrub sprays. So there's one back here. So there's one right there. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna convert this one that's spraying this tree, which doesn't need it, and that, which doesn't need it. I'm gonna convert that, I'm gonna move it out there, and I'm gonna convert it to one of those rotors so it now can cover out there. And probably not the best strategy to convert a shrub head into a lawn head, but I know that people do it all the time, and that's my only choice unless I wanna start doing some major digging, which I am not up for today. Nope. Oh, there's one. That's a rainbird. That'll work. That's 1/2 inch. Also, you'll see a ton of weeds in here. I'm going to do a video on spraying weeds in beds. I got to redo these whole beds. They need to be completely re-rocked and everything. I got all kind of issues. I think I'm going to take this one right here. There it is. Oh, just pop down. And first thing I got to do is I got to move it out a little closer to the edge, because if I leave it right there, it's going to run into this tree right here, and it's going to run into that one. So I'm going to go ahead and take it and move it all the way out closer to the edge. I'm not going to put it in the lawn, but I'm going to move it out closer to the edge, and then that way it can cover. And this is really the main one that I need to be concerned with. So. Okay, well, I got it excavated, and so there you can see the old, I don't know what they call that, a spray head or whatever, but then you can see we got a 90-degree elbow and then flexible pipe. And this is how most things are done in Florida. They'll use rigid PVC for the long runs, and then when you get to a head, they always put some flexible on there so they can bend it around and move it easier. And also this helps. It's not going to happen in a shrub bed, but if you were to step on this or whatever, this gives you flexibility, whereas rigid PVC could break. So that's what that is, but this makes it easy for me because I went into my bone box. Whenever you have an irrigation system, you're going to have little pieces of everything laying around and you never want to throw them away. So I have some flexible pipe here. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this here. I'm going to put on that splice, or I don't know what you call that, flange, splice, somebody give me the right word. Anyway, so I can move all the way down through here. Then I got my elbow right there. So it'll look like this at the end. I got my elbow right here, and you can see that's threaded. So this will go in there. I'll cement that in. And then this will, oh, wait a minute. Dang, that ain't going to work. That's a 3/4. Okay, got to go back to the bone box. I need a 90, but this needs to be a 1/2, not a 3/4. Let's hope I have one. Yeah, that one's got threads. So it looks like apparently last time when I bought a bunch of stuff, I bought ones with threads. That's a 3/4. See, that's what I need, but that's a 3/4 thread. But see how that one's not threaded right there? That's what I need. In 1/2 inch. Hey, look at that. A little mini Venturi. A larger Venturi. I got all kinds of fun stuff in here. What's that right there? Ah, threaded again. There we go. Got it. Haha. Bone box comes in again. So there we go. 1/2 inch threads, slip connection. You do not need to use any kind of Teflon tape here because this system is not under pressure. Your valves are what open each zone, open and close each zone, so this is not under pressure constantly. The only time you need any kind of thread tape is if the system is under pressure, like in your house, your toilet or your sinks, but this is not, so no need to waste it. Okay, so we want to go out to here. All right, so there we go. There's our extension. So we started way back there, put a slip coupler on there, added a little bit more flexible pipe, And there we go. 1/2-inch connection on. Now we just got to bury it, and then we can have it squirting out there, and hopefully that'll help solve our problem. Okay, there we go. That one is good to go. Now I still got to do this one down here, but I'm going to save that for another day. So, not going to do any extra work unless I have to, because that little spray right there is covering that little spot right there. Again, not ideal, but it is what it is. But I think by changing that one, I think I'm going to be fine now, because I got good overlap through most of it. And then this one over here I have to change out. I'll have to go to the store and get another head, because this one's not turning at all. But that's just a simple head change out, so no big deal. There we go. Irrigation task complete. Okay, now that that's out of the way, let's get to talking about grub control. And I'm going to start with an old school draw ring that I did. You guys know I used to like to do draw rings because my name is Simon. And I want to show you that because it talks about the life cycle of the grub. So let's go review that first.
All right, y'all, real quick, let's go through this. Let's look at the lifestyle of grubs. You can see here, life cycle. You can see who you've got here, the months of the year. This is where we are in April, but let's go right here to June. These beetles are often called May-June beetles or June bugs because they come out in June. You'll find them in your pool filter, or definitely you'll find them on your porch lights. What they do is all during that month of June and into July, they lay eggs in the lawns, well-watered lawns, and those eggs hatch into small grubs that feed on grass roots to grow. As they feed on grass roots, they get larger and larger, and then when it starts to get cold, depending on where you live, they will go down deep for the winter, and then they're down there, and then as we get to the spring where we are now, they come back up. This is, what is this, a pupae stage right here, and they're about to hatch here. There is a little feeding that might go on right in here, then they hatch and they go. I'm not typically worried about the feeding that goes on in here because your grass is growing so vigorously, you usually won't notice it, but some feeding can happen, and then they launch out, and now the cycle starts all over. So that's how it works. This is why we're gonna put a preventative down right here, right in this range here. Let's just ruin this drawing. We're gonna put a preventative down right in there somewhere, right? So when they get to this point, we've got that preventative down protecting us all during this point.
So I'm making this video here in late April, which means according to our life cycle of grubs, we can get rid of this 24-hour grub killer. Take this off the menu for now. You do not want to use it. You want to go to one of these. These are preventatives. And actually, with today's technology, it's actually a preventative and a contact kill all in one. And I'm going to show you something that you probably didn't know. So this is what's called Acelepryn, and this is the professional grub control. If you go to any LCO office, LCO stands for lawn care operator. If you go to their office and you look at what they're using for grub control, or you look on the back of their truck, it's more than likely Acelepryn. And I don't care about the word Acelepryn. That's just a brand name that Syngenta gave it, and I don't know why. I don't know if that's somebody's last name, Acelepryn, or what. But really what matters is the active ingredient. So we can come here on the bag and you can see these professional formulations. They make it look like pharmaceuticals. You can see right there, there's your active ingredient. Now, before I pronounce that for you, I want to know, have any of you ever heard this word pronounced anywhere? I looked online and I can't find anyone with authority who has pronounced that word before. That's the active ingredient. So I'm going to do my best to try and pronounce that word right there. It's the same active ingredient here in the liquid concentrate version. And the way that I pronounce it is chlorantraniliprole. So the active ingredient in the brand name Acelepryn is chlorantraniliprole. Pretty interesting that that professional active ingredient is also exactly the same active ingredient that you can get here, available at any Ace Hardware, called Scott's GrubEx. And let's go down right there and you'll see it right there, chlorantraniliprole. Now I did a full blog post that I'll link below because you know I love to break down the labels and understand those a little bit better, but what I really wanted to understand is there a difference in Acelepryn and GrubEx when it comes to the application rate? Because we know that the active ingredient is the same, but what about the pounds on the ground, and what does that tell us about these products? So I'll give you a link below to that blog post for those of you that want to dig into those details, because it's super interesting. And by the way, going into those details and learning the label and reading the label will also help you make a better application, a more consistent application. Understanding the why behind the recommendations is the key to making a proper application. And that is the most important thing, is to make a proper, consistent application according to the label. So here's the funny thing about that. The Acelepryn does not need to be watered in, but the GrubEx does. Yes, you did hear that right. Acelepryn does not need to be watered in. I found it in 2 places on brochures on their website, and that's for the liquid concentrate mixed in water or the granular. Scott's GrubEx, however, you can see here on the label, does need to be watered in with 1 inch of irrigation or rainfall. So you can read those details, but the one thing I want to tell you is this product here, the labeling allows for multiple rates and multiple applications a year. In other words, there's a low rate and a high rate. This product here allows for 1 application a year, and you only get 1 rate to use. The 1 rate to use with this GrubEx is the same as the low rate of the Acelepryn. So the Acelepryn label allows you to put down a much stronger or more concentrated or just more chlorantraniliprole on the ground when compared to the Scott's. Now the other thing you'll read here on the Scott's is it says that you get a 4-month residual. So normally we would have told you not to put your grub applications down until June, because that's when the June bugs are laying their eggs. So you go ahead and put it down right at the time they're laying their eggs, so you kill those babies right as they hatch, right? But with this, because it has a longer residual, you can apply this in April and you'll get, through May, June, July, and August. And by that time, the threat of grubs is gone and you're fine. So either way, whichever one you use, I personally would go ahead and water it in. That's just me. I'm old school that way. But if you use the Scott's, you definitely should, because it tells you to on the label. Last little bit of fun that we'll have is I'll put the prices up. So 1 bag of Acelepryn, price. 4-ounce bottle of Acelepryn, price. Scott's GrubEx, price. Now, as you guys know that have been around for a while, price doesn't mean anything unless you know your application rate, your pounds on the ground. So before I do that math for you, tell me which one of these do you think is the cheapest when it comes to pounds on the ground? In other words, when I break down the application rate with the price, which one of these gives you the least expensive application? Okay, well there you can see the retail pricing for each one of these. Now again, I have the math worked out for you in a blog post linked below, but just give me your guess in the comments. Which one is going to be the least expensive per application? Here you go. This takes into account the active ingredient concentrations and the rates, and you can see that the Acelepryn G, the professional formulation where you buy 1 bag for $125, actually comes in lower than the Scott's GrubEx when you look at it on a per 1,000 basis, but the cheapest overall is the liquid, and I've always told you all that when it comes to IDEs, you're always going to get a better bang for your buck if you can do liquids. So one thing I just noticed, the reason the Scott's might need to be watered in is it could be that the formulation or the way the prills are formulated might be a little bit different, meaning it's required for water to activate these prills, because if you look, they're more of a lighter, what color is that? Tannish, beigeish color. Whereas if you go over here, these are more brown wine color. So that's probably what it is. Something to do with the formulation. Says that the Acelepryn does not need to be watered in, but because of the way that these prills are formed or formatted, they do. So that's probably the difference. That's my biggest guess. Either way, I'm going to go ahead and put down the Scott's GrubEx here, and the setting for a Scott's spreader is 3.5. So usually on an earthway, I'm going to translate that to somewhere around like 13-ish. So we'll see how that does. Maybe we'll put it to 12. Yeah, I think I'm going to translate that to 12. And then, do like I always do, just open it up, take a look. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, there we go. Got it down. So I would say that setting of 12 was very, very close. Maybe could get away with a 13 because I did have a little bit left over, but 12 is going to be fine, 12, 13. If you have an Earthway 2600A Plus, we don't have the Yard Mastery spreader on sale yet. Still going to be delayed a little bit, but Earthway spreaders, setting 12, maybe 13 for Scott's GrubEx seems to be just about right.